I have the pleasure of interviewing my upcoming guest, Jason Latas. Deslin Hockey has referred me to him, and I'm just so honored because he is of quantum body coach performance coaching for 3 decades. Listen to this title. He was an adventure guide and quantum wellness coach, guided many Fortune 500 CEOs on custom adventures across the globe. That's for a separate interview. I'd love to know more about that. But you were featured in the New York Times, the LA Times, Modern Bride, ESPN, ABC, and your mission, your passion, enjoying helping people feel good in their skin and perform better. I love how you include personal and business lives. Today, though, I'm here to ask him, how can parents, right, teach their kids to overcome limited beliefs when we're struggling with our own limited beliefs? Is it even possible?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a wide open question right there. That's a can of worms. Um, there's so many angles I could take at answering this question. And as you mentioned earlier when we were talking, most of us don't even know that we have limiting beliefs. And honestly, it takes a moment. I have a program that I do that I call our domestication. And it goes through what I call the domestication process. But it allows people to understand that we're not really who we think we are. And if most people could take a moment to understand themselves a little bit more, and then understand that through what they say to their children, they're passing this down. And their children, as I said to you earlier, their brains are developing at such a rate. Their cellular rejuvenation, we can't even fathom how fast their brain and their bodies are growing. So they're actually at a slower brainwave capacity, but that brainwave is a hyper learning brainwave. And so whatever we say to our children when they're young, um, even if it's a joke, it's often taken as a fact. And just realizing that one thing right there will change how most parents speak to their child, and how they talk to them. Because your child is taking all of that as fact and recording it and writing the program that they're going to run their life on by the way you speak to them and raise them when they're a child. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. I'm thinking of all the things that I've said in the past 26
All of us,
years.
yeah, all of us. When I teach these programs, I say consistently, I'm not immune to any of this, but I have to remind myself, in this. I work with a lot of anxiety clients also, and children with anxiety. And I have to remember these tools that I'm teaching are also tools that I've used for myself.
Hmm.
Most of the stuff that I've developed from my own learning and then ended up teaching it. And because I think it's so valuable for people to really understand how a child's brain is programmed. Um, and I can go into brainwaves, but I'm not sure how much time we have or how many questions you have for me today.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering, I mean, since, awareness is probably where it starts, how does a parent relearn? Because sometimes, and you hear people say, I am never going to turn into my mother. And then when they're in their 30s and 40s, they're like, oh my gosh, I've just turned my mother, you know?
Okay, and that's exactly what I was just saying. When you were born, and I'll try and keep it quick because we don't have too much time here, but it starts when your child is in your belly and it's bathed in your hormones in your blood. So if you are stressed out and you have stress hormones all through your system, your baby is bathing in that. It feels that, it knows that. It feels the energy of how it was raised. And then when you're born, for the first year at least, you're in that slow, sleepy delta wave pattern, which is also a hyper learning state. At about 2 to 3, we come up to a theta brainwave. That's that hyper imaginative brainwave. We all know it, right? That stick can become a sword, and as
Hmm.
the child is convinced it is, but your imagination is magic. And if you understand the things that you say to your child, they're creating Disney movies in their head with these amazing visions. And so if you're saying simple things like, I don't want you to be a failure, your child is creating a movie of it being a failure in its head right there. and it's playing that movie over and over again. And you got to remember when that child goes to bed tonight, it's going to replay that scary movie in its head again of it being a failure. And that's how we start to program these things into our minds as a child. That's also why when we get triggered, we often respond in ways that we didn't expect. We respond like that child. Well, that's where we wrote the program. Our parents said things when we were a kid. We recorded it in that program. It's just like buying a computer. It's already programmed. So even if I wanted to do a certain thing, it won't. It's programmed to do this. And by our words and our actions and our emotions and our tone, we're programming our children. A great practice is to take your phone, because we have these great phones now that do everything, and set it down when you're talking to your child and press record. Don't let them know it. And then help them, just like you normally would. Almost forget the phone's there. And then later listen to it. And you'll hear all sorts of things that you didn't even know you said, or ways that you said it. And you'll go, oh my gosh, did I really say that to my child? I could probably say that differently next time. And so it's really everything I teach is through self-observation. So, whether it's children, personal training, anxiety, PTSD, depression, it takes self-observation, and recording yourself occasionally can help tremendously with
That's a really good idea. Any tips on what we should say?
that. Empowering things.
Empowering words.
Yeah, like I said, the rules in our household are not you get straight A's so you can have a corporate job or you're a failure. It's you're loved, you're safe, and you're enough. The majority of that is you're enough. You're perfect. You're beautiful the way you are. Let's bring your unique gifts out, and through education, let's find out who you are. So instead of making you a copy of dad, and you can have the exact same career path and exact same belief systems as your mom or dad, why don't we find out who you uniquely are and develop that through the education process?
I love that quote you said, don't let school interfere with your education. Can
That's
you
something
explain
that
that? I love that.
I definitely practice was I never let school get in the way of my education.
I love that. What does
And
that exactly mean?
I try to do that for my kids too. There are certain base education things that you need to know, but also we got to understand if you have 100 kids in the classroom, there's 100 different personalities. And imagine they were animals. You can't judge a monkey by its ability to, swim, or you can't judge an elephant by its ability to climb a tree. Everyone has unique gifts. And there's a base education that we need to know to move forward in this world. But beyond that, we really need to focus on who you are and who you uniquely are, But by not letting my children's schooling get in the way of their education, I made sure they traveled. I made sure they met lots of people, traveled to other states, other countries when and if possible, or even watched programs, about other countries and travel and things like this. So they understood that their little neighborhood that they were raised in, the whole world isn't like that. And getting to know cultures and different people and different things was more of an enlightening part of their true education for me.
Wow, that is empowering because I think a lot of students, already they're dreading, right? School's coming up in a few weeks.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh no.
I know.
And it's the pressure of grades. I mean,
Yeah.
any comforting words for parents who are stressed out and their school year is happening? What if their kids had poor grades fourth quarter? I mean, I hear it all, but what are comforting words that I could actually help parents with?
One that I don't think we hear enough is I love you no matter what.
Oh, I love that.
You're amazing. You're my child. You're amazing. I thank God for you every day. And you're enough. Don't let school freak you out. You're there to learn about the world, but at the same time, you're a beautiful human no matter what. And I love you.
Yeah, that's
And
just so comforting hearing you say that. But I
yeah,
think something happens when a parent sees those red marks and sees an F or a D or even a C, and you just think, it's almost like it defines their future. So how do
Well,
you
it's
rewire
interesting
that?
when parents move to the punishment phase of I'm going to take your phone away or I'm
That's a
going
big
to.
one. What do you think about that?
It doesn't. How much nicer would it be if we just sat down and went, "Oh my gosh, a D! Wow!" So I started a little bit with this class in high school also. So tell me about it. What do you like or dislike about this subject? And maybe you might get a clue into your unique little human's mind as opposed to punishing them and raising them, understanding that they do things so they don't get punished, as opposed to learning what they love in life and focusing on that.
Well, because there's going to be subjects that they're not going to exceed in or even understand, and sometimes it's the learning style, right? Sometimes it's the teaching style. Sometimes it's just not being interested. But the pressure that these
Yeah,
kids face, I mean, some of them almost feel like it's not worth you don't want to go to school. Is life worth it? I mean, I hear it all, and they're 7, they're
yeah.
12,
Well, I
and
had
you
my
think,
daughter, I think at 12 years old, I'm ish, and she was crying her eyes out coming home from school because she didn't know what her career path was going to be. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I had to explain to her, I said, do you know most people change their career path several times in their life? You know what I mean? This is just, and I had to help them. I'm not, I'm going to try not to phrase this incorrectly, but not take school too seriously. Take it seriously, but not to the point to where you're afraid or you're going to be punished or you don't have a career path. I mean, it shouldn't be a fearful thing. There's an interesting two belief systems. I've been in a lot of entrepreneurial groups and I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. And there's the belief system that you work really hard on your, I'm not going to phrase this correctly, but your failures, what you're bad at. You know what I mean? Really focus hard on that. But then there was another belief system that came out several years ago that said, what if you took everything you were good at and focused just as hard on that? Can you imagine how well you would excel? And you would not only just excel, but you would excel in something that's natural to you. How much more lovely
wow.
life would you have if you
Well,
focused
you
on
would
the.
enjoy your life more because that's what happens when they have extra tutoring on math when they hate math. And then they're told to do more practice. And
Yeah,
then you think, oh my gosh, this is not fun at all. And this is
yeah,
summer. They're told to
yeah,
do math and, all of this stuff during the summer. But I think that is maybe that's the old
paradigm.
thoughts. Yeah, it's a paradigm where, you know what, we need to what, and I find myself saying that too. Unfortunately, I do come to help you with what you don't like. They're like, can we do
Sure.
reading? I'm like, well, actually, I'm here to do math. I hate math. So I always tell them I'm not going to, have them love math, but at least,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you say that? Because
Well, that's the beautiful part of your job is your job is to like me as a personal trainer. That's how I started 30 years ago as a personal trainer. And my job wasn't to do a boot camp where I beat you up and made you hate it. Really, the way I saw it was I wanted to teach you how to make it fun, how to make eating
yes,
fun, how to make working out fun, how to do these things, how to make small changes over time for self integrity that are going to have great changes in the future, as opposed to boot camp. You know what I mean? And I actually had a math tutor. I wasn't very good at math and I didn't like it. I had my mom got me a really cool tutor and she showed me a couple card tricks and a couple games. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you mean math can be fun? And she showed me a couple ways
yeah.
that math could be fun. I actually excelled in math after that. I didn't just like it, I excelled in it. I was the top of my class.
Wow.
And
It's
I
all
couldn't
about making
believe
it
it.
fun though. That's the thing. I bring my play money and then sometimes I bring
Yeah,
the gold, the dollar coin. I
yeah,
bring the actual coins. I bring
yeah,
a clock and then because then they realize, wow, if you like money,
yeah,
then I mean it's really important to not get ripped off or make a game out of it. But
yeah.
it's amazing
Everybody,
now that the tools that are available now, you know how they have those fidgets? They
yes.
actually have a times table because someone was going to
Oh,
order, remember that old yellow push thing and you just push it and the answers are right there? There
yeah,
is now a huge 12 by 12 like pop fidget thing and you push the little bubble. And I thought,
yeah,
wow, the tools that are now available with videos, with just fun ways, not
yeah,
just paper pencil task.
yeah.
So
It's,
is
and
there,
that's
I'm just
kind of,
curious, yeah, how was your experience as a student and your parents, did they follow that same philosophy that you
My
do?
parents came from a small farm town in Kansas. So a lot of the work I was doing was beyond them. And so they helped me as much as they could, but at the same time, they were willing to find tutors for me. And maybe it was different for me because they understood. They said, wow, let's figure this out together, which I thought was really neat instead of looking down on me and saying, I did this. I was really good in this. I can't believe you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And parents don't understand. And that's why recording your conversations with your children can be huge. Not so you can ever use it against your child, ever. But even though we're tempted as teenagers, but so you can see how you relate to your child. And it's no different, like I said, in entrepreneur situations, working with an employee, parents usually work better with employees. I love to hire managers that were already parents because they knew how to work. They'd had children in the past, but it's relating to it, making it fun, and finding your key strengths and how it can relate to what we're discussing right now. It's really similar, but like I said, the reporting is huge because afterwards, a lot of parents go, "Oh my gosh, I don't believe I said that," you know, and we don't know we say that. We just often just talk, and we don't realize we're not talking to an adult friend. We're talking to
Mm-hmm.
that's very sensitive, that's learning, that's developing their emotional personality, and you have a great effect on that. And just a few words can crush your child's
Oh,
self.
and I never realized that. I think when they're in their 20s, sometimes, they'll say, "Remember when you said that when I was 10?"
Yeah.
And you think, "I said that?" I don't think I said
Yes.
that. No, you did say that. And
I
then you
know.
realize, but I'm realizing if when you apologize, the power of apologies, even if it happened years later,
Yeah.
that it really mends because it can pretty much destroy the trust relationship. I mean,
Yeah.
what is your take on that? Like when you mean to make it into a life lesson, you mean to encourage your child, but
Yeah.
in reality, you are criticizing,
Well,
you're
I've
condescending.
spent the majority of my life self-reflecting,
Yeah.
and I I listen to the voices in my head. We all have them, and I wonder why I'm thinking that. I actually pay attention to my thoughts, my actions, my emotions, and through mindfulness and self-awareness, you got to understand how everything I do, I think, and I act doesn't just affect me; it affects everyone around me. And honestly, most of what I teach, from personal training to neuroplasticity, starts with self-awareness. And so I know it might not sound like the answer you were looking for, but simple self-awareness, so many people don't even understand what they're saying again and again and again throughout the day. And when they're saying that to a child, the effects it can have emotionally on a child for the rest of their life. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
why you just said earlier, sometimes I go, oh my gosh, I sounded just like my mother. Because you were the child in that low brainwave,
Yeah.
and you were writing the program that you're
Yeah.
going to run on for the rest of your life. Most people will go to their deathbed having never worked on themselves, and they don't realize what they're saying or doing. Really, it's most of the stuff we say is repetitive and robotic, and we don't realize, especially when we're saying it to a child, how damaging that can be.
I think every parent should do that. I'm going to do that. I know I'll regret half the things, or sometimes it's the tone. I know my
Most
students,
everyone.
yeah, they'll look at me and they're like, it's wrong, isn't it? I'm like, I didn't say anything. And my daughter's like, Mom, you have this look. When it's wrong, you have this
Body language.
body language. I'm
Yeah,
like, no,
tone,
I didn't say
body
that.
language, and volume. It's
Oh,
amazing.
yes. Volume.
We don't even notice. You listen to a recording and you don't even notice when your voice elevates. You don't even know you're doing it. And I
Hmm.
catch people all the time who go, did you notice you just raised your voice quite a bit? They're like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But they just don't know it. They're not aware of it. Self awareness is everything. It's everything. Self awareness is not letting your schooling get in the way of your education. And it's really getting to know yourself. And that's why it's funny, for 30 years, I teach so many different modalities. But it all comes down to self-awareness and also understanding that a belief that you may have learned as a child is just a thought you keep thinking and shouldn't be confused with a fact. And that's where I'm going to go off on cognitive dissonance, and that's where oftentimes people don't even understand or know what they're saying because it's so repetitive. It's something that is running in their subconscious from their childhood, and they don't even know they're saying it or doing it or acting that way until
When
you
their
got.
children don't, they don't even question it, right? They do
Yeah, well,
not question
they
it.
don't even
And
know
when
they're
I
doing
ask
it, so
who,
they can't
yeah, who
question it.
said that? And is it true? Yeah, I'm naughty because of, or I have a bad memory. And I remember telling a
Yes.
kindergartner, you train your brain to believe if you say I can't, fill in the blank, then your brain says, okay, you
Yeah.
can't do it. But I mean, if you really believe that it's in their power, right? Because that is a very,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about being that victim where I can't do it because my whole family's bad at math, or I'm not like my dad because he's not a reader and I'm like my dad. When I was hearing those stories, you think, wow, and
Wow.
they really, truly believe it. I'd love to end with the chick story. I think that really is because as a mom, I'm struggling with it. Even with two adult daughters, when now I'm getting better at it. My daughters tell me you would be a whole different mother, but with experience, research, and just knowing, right? Because we didn't know that
Yeah.
you're not supposed to say, wow, you really disappointed me. Before
Oh
it was
my
like
God.
you share your emotions, that's what it is. And then when I talk to kids, it's not taking the cell phone that hurts, it's knowing that they disappointed their mom or dad you know
That's that's the hardest and one of the harshest things you can say to a child. I did come from a little bit of guilt yourself or guilt your children, right? And that's the I'm disappointed. And if I tell you I'm disappointed, hopefully that'll make you act better. When honestly, that just makes you play horrible movies about yourself in your head.
and we
Um,
don't know that, right? Or you know how much I do for you.
mhm. I know
All I
all
want
those
you to do
programs,
is
right?
this. And then I realized, wow, I guess as mothers, we feel unappreciated. So we think maybe if I tell them that I did this, 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 and this, they'll be like, oh, sure, mom, I'll do it. And that never happens. What goes on in a child's brain when they
Yeah,
hear, um, you know, can you not just show some appreciation? Why are you disrespecting me? Why,
I know.
why, why are you giving me a hard time and ruining my day?
You
What
know
is
what? That's
going
what I
on?
love about you. I love the way that you fill in the blank. I really love that. I love the way you think that way about this. So let's look at math from a different angle. I love that you thought of it that way. That's really cool. What a cool imagination you have.
I've been
Let's
learning to do that, and kids' faces
and you're
light
like,
up.
did you just praise me? And I
Yeah, exactly. Wait, no one has said that to me ever.
because this piece of paper has nothing to do with the fact that you're amazing. You're
Ooh,
still amazing.
that is a good one.
This just means math. I don't care. I'm not a very good swimmer, but people like me. So let's not judge ourselves by this little piece of paper. Let's just see if we can figure out a new way to approach this. It's there's so many ways to approach things without guilt and
Wow.
fear.
I love that. So what's the share the chick story? I love that
Well,
story.
you were mentioning parents wanting to help their
Oh,
children too
protect. Yes.
much.
Prevent
Well, and
failures,
and
protect.
overachieve, right? So they're going to go and they're
Yes.
going to talk to the principal. They're going to talk to the tennis coach. They're going to shuffle things so that you excel. Well, in the end, it doesn't really help you out. And when you were saying this, it made me think of the story of a chicken in an egg, and once it cracks that shell, any bird, they have to work their way out of the shell. A butterfly in a cocoon is very similar. If you walk up and pull the cocoon off and unpeel it, it's going to die. It's the act of struggling to get out of that shell or cocoon that gives it the strength to actually fly and flourish. And I don't know if it was Abe Lincoln that said it to it. He said, oftentimes we try to help our children too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's often the hard work that we had when we were younger that we got to gain our character. When we do everything for our children, they don't gain that same character. And we don't think about it that way because oftentimes we're too busy just trying to have our child get an A and judge them on these silly little things like a piece of paper and math, you know?
Well, because
You're
they
tired to,
think that it means, right? When I tell my students, why do you want to get good grades? So that I can get into a good college, so that I can get a scholarship,
yes.
so that I can get a good job, so that I can buy a house. And it's so trained this, the way that their future should be. And then
Yeah.
you have these influencers who are making six figures
Oh my
showing
gosh.
tips. And then, you think, wait, what happened to
Yeah.
society's expectations or the shoulds, right? Any
Yeah.
quotes, any end quotes on that, the shoulds? What should we do to, do we replace the shoulds? Do we delete the
Well,
shoulds?
I'm just gonna go back to I won't I want to say too many parents, but I'm gonna say many parents
Hmm.
want to plan their child's life. And
Yes.
it's so interesting because um like you just said, there's these steps in the school and the college, and then this, whether it's going off into the army or serving a mission or these different things that you're supposed to do in your unique culture or belief system or mindset, which is right here,
Hmm.
as opposed to saying, oh my gosh, I have three unique children. I can't wait to find out all of the beautiful and different and unique gifts they're going to have so they can grow up and flourish in their unique beauty as opposed to a robot that I put together.
Wow. Do you think it's a lack of trust? I just asked someone that.
I don't know if
My
it's a
my
lack
my
of
dad,
trust.
my dad. I said, do you? Because he says, what if you're not tutoring her? What if she fails? And I said, do you trust her journey? And he was silent. He didn't like that question.
I know. Well, it's control.
Yes.
Too many people are control freaks and they try and control everything, and then they realize in the end they screwed it up by trying to control it. And it's no different than finding that egg and peeling it open so I can see the chicken even faster. You're not going to plant a seed in the garden to grow a stalk of corn and go out and dig it up every night to see if it's growing. You got to let it bloom, you know?
That's a great analogy.
And there are so many analogies, it's, and I think I use anecdotes and analogies a lot in my coaching and teaching because people, well, all the way back to the Bible and before, they taught through stories because people learned a lot easier. And that's why oftentimes math and things like that, it's so overly analytical. If you can add a small story or a magic trick or make it fun,
Hmm.
get more involved. Everyone loves a good story. And you're going to remember the chicken story more than if I told you what your neurotransmitters were doing while that was happening. Right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, my passion has always been the brain. It's so funny. My business is brain builder. So I was telling a student, and he goes, "You build brains?" And I said, "In a way." And he goes, "Does that mean you're God?" And I just started laughing. Like, no, not. But
No,
see,
no,
it's the
no.
belief system
Yeah,
that they think that. Can you imagine actually building a brain? But
I know. Legos.
yeah, I should find that. I should find a Lego brain.
I know. I'm fascinated by the brain and how it works. And oh my gosh.
I had a Jello mold because I was doing a presentation on left and the right hemispheres, and
Yes,
I had
yes.
I had a Jello mold, and I took it, and I was so scared it'd fall apart. But it's really interesting because you capture their attention, like you said, instead of talking about the different parts of the brain and what it does when you actually see the Jello mold.
Yes. Well, right and left brain. I don't know how much time we have left, but I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by that. I teach whole brain meditations, and we live in such an overly analytical left brain world. Oftentimes, that artist side is thrown to the side, and we're judged by these analysis. And it's kind of like EQ versus IQ.
Yes.
I'm writing a book right now. One of my chapters is going to be for IQ versus EQ, and how we are so graded on that IQ. But most of the people, not most, but many people with super high IQs have no emotional intelligence at all. They can recite a dictionary, but they can't walk into a room and discern someone's body language or if they're
When they're not getting
emotionally.
along with their coworkers or
I
employers,
know.
they're losing their jobs and they're wondering, wait, I am ultra qualified.
I
Why are you
know.
not appreciating my
Yes.
value? Right?
Well,
So,
in Maui with my business, you were talking about my adventure company, and
yes.
I'm hiring a manager, and they come in with these huge resumes, and I'm like, okay, that's great, that's amazing. Do you know how to smile on the phone? And they would just stop dead in their tracks, and I'd say, what does that mean to you? And then I answered it,
Wow.
because you should be able to pick up a phone and make someone feel you that like they're your best friend. Um, and so that analytical isn't going to get you through life. It'll help you do a puzzle, but it's not necessarily going to help you engage with other humans in this world as well as you could.
Well, that's what schools are missing, right? I mean, we are focused so much on IQ. And so I remember someone was bullying my daughter and she said, you know what, you probably have a low EQ. And he goes, what's that? And she's like, exactly. And she walked away.
Exactly.
But now a lot of the companies, they need you to take a questionnaire and sometimes like 50, 100 questions, and it's based
Yeah.
on IQ. And they think, what do you mean? What would I do if I found money on the, sidewalk? What does this have to do with the job? But it's consistency in answering all those questions, right? But they never did this, say 20 years ago. It was just based on your resume. And so is that what you help people to?
Well, I also do a entrepreneurial course called You're the CEO of Your Cells. And I relate to every cell in your body having intelligence, and how you can relate that to managing a corporation is the same as managing your body. Um, and how emotional intelligence is so important for navigating our human world, not just you know, the numbers.
That would be life changing, though, as a parent, as a child, and even, reflecting on what future you plan
Yeah.
to have, because that fear, like you said, when your daughter was like, I need to know what I'm doing. And I think at 14, they're starting to do research on what college and what the requirements are, and they're 14, you know?
Well, and sometimes the parents need to relax a little bit and understand that their children don't need to be exactly like them, and they weren't born to be exactly like them. They were born to be beautiful, unique humans, and not necessarily have the exact same career path as dad or mom, or do it exactly the way they did, And it's like forcing a flower to bloom instead of allowing it to see the beauty of
You
what.
hear the other side though, where they don't want, I don't want you to be like me. I never went to college. I never did this. And so there's
Yeah,
extra pressure. There's extra
yes,
pressure. Like you need to,
yes,
I'm
I've heard
giving you
that
all
too.
these opportunities. I'm
Yeah,
hiring a tutor. You're having these extracurricular activities. You're taking this special study
yes,
skills class. And then the child is, I mean, that's a lot of pressure too, right? To
a
be
lot of pressure.
not like mom or
Yeah,
dad. And that message is, yeah, because you don't want to be like us.
yeah.
What does that show to the
Well, that's the same thing. The IQ, the EQ. There's so many. It's got to be a blend of both. That's why I teach whole brain meditation, whole brain thinking, because you've got to mix the analytical with that beautiful artistic side, creative side, to find out truly who that beautiful child is. And that's, like I said, that's how we want our kids to know that they're safe, they're loved, and they're enough, and then we'll go from there. But first things first, you're beautiful and you're enough. Okay, let's work in school.
I
Um,
love that. I don't think no one is very rarely do my children, who I tutor, even hear that because they usually hear what they need to improve on,
I
right?
know, I know. I have some kids. I'm working with a client right now, and she's divorced, and she wants her children to know that they're loved and they're enough. And I agree with that. But every time they go visit dad, dad is in how do I phrase it? He's very strict, religious and business, both. And so, three daughters, they grew up knowing that he's disappointed with them because
Oh,
they didn't follow in this footstep, so he's disappointed. He doesn't say, I love you no matter what. I wish you would try this. All they've heard is he's disappointed. And so when they go to visit dad, they're like, I'm afraid to, what clothes should I bring that he won't be disappointed in me? What should I do? How do I talk so that he's not disappointed in me? And so it's really sad seeing these children raised being torn apart between
Well, and that's
mom.
hard, right? Because mom has no control over
Yeah,
what dad does. And so I think that is the challenge right there. But then I always tell moms, but you have control over what happens in your home, right?
yeah,
And all they need is that, like you said, they're safe, they're loved, they feel like,
yeah.
right, in that one home. Because they think, oh my gosh, their dad's going to totally ruin them. But all they need is that one thing. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I could go on and on and
You're
on.
amazing.
I love what you do and just your mission, your interest, your passion, your everything. But
Uh, and you,
oh,
we could talk for hours.
I
Absolutely.
know I'll have to do part two and talk about the custom adventures across the globe. Are you still doing
No,
traveling?
honestly, not as much. I did that for people in the past, and now I'm
Hmm.
doing it for myself and my own family.
I was
So
gonna say that, and
now it's my
that's what
turn.
counts. Yes, your turn.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You enjoy the rest of your day, and
Yeah.
perhaps maybe sometime next year we'll do part two and see where you're at, your
Maybe we can
book
talk
and
about
everything.
brain stuff.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
it's so exciting. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Take care, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.